Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 156. On tonight's episode, we're going to discuss how Jeffrey Epstein, after his conviction, was still welcomed at places like Frédéric Fekkai's salon and was still palling around with people like Frédéric Fekkai. Now, what does this say to us? Well, again, it just shows us, in the grand scheme of things, these ultra-rich people do not care what somebody has done. They do not care that Jeffrey Epstein is a human trafficker. They do not care that he assaulted and molested children. And they do not care that he assaulted, molested, and raped women as well. They don't care about any of that because you know why? He's part of their club. He can help them with money. They've all been running around together. They have ties that go much deeper than just hanging out together at these parties. And Frédéric Fekkai is somebody who has escaped our attention for much too long here on the podcast. So considering I was talking about Sarah Kellen Vickers earlier, I figured what the hell, let's go in full Monty and we'll talk about Frédéric Fekkai on tonight's show. Usually the Daily Drop is reserved for whatever the daily news is for the day, but honestly, there's nothing worth making an episode about today that has to do with the news of the day. So I figured, let's not waste the episode, let's not go over something we've talked about already. Let's go and jump into this article from the Daily Beast about Frédéric Fekkai and Jeffrey Epstein palling around with him and sending his girls, the Sarah Kellen Vickers of the world, down to the salon for their $750 haircuts. Oh yeah, did I mention that Fekkai also was in the Black Book, and that Fekkai was also on the plane with Epstein? Did I mention any of that? Oh, okay, we'll get to that as well. All right, so this article is from the Daily Beast. The headline, Epstein flaunted girls after his arrest at hair salon for the stars. Even after his jail stint, Jeffrey Epstein frequented his friend Frédéric Fekkai's high-profile salons with a bevy of very young women, former stylists say. This article was written by Emily Sugarman, and it was published in October 7th of 2019. You know, this is the same story that I heard, and this is good work. This is how you investigate these stories. You talk to people that work at places that these people frequented. You talk to people who worked at places where they got food delivered from. You talk to people at the airports. And what you do is you build a big picture of what these people were up to and who they were hanging out with, and it goes and it corroborates the information that we already have, right? When you put all the pieces together and you start connecting all the pieces of the puzzle, well, the big picture starts to emerge. In 3 years after he registered as a sex offender, millionaire financier, pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein launched a veritable crusade to rehabilitate his image. The convicted felon donated to prominent charities, convinced friends to invite him to A-list events, and took to wearing a Harvard sweatshirt whenever there was a camera around. Oh, no. He didn't convince friends to invite him to these events. He had information and blackmail on these people. They were all in bed with Jeffrey Epstein. After his conviction, when you're talking about these scientists, we've discussed this several times, Jeffrey Epstein had his claws deep into all of these people, and it was a symbiotic relationship at that point. They were two parasites living off of each other. But among the most important stops on Epstein's comeback tour were his regular appointments at hairdresser Frédéric Fekkai's high-profile salons. Look, all right, when you're in, Frédéric Fekkai knew exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was, what he was. As I've stated earlier, he was on these planes with these young girls. And then Epstein gets busted and convicted for what he got convicted for. And Fekkai is still hanging out with him, still having him come to his events, still having him go to the salon, still giving him sweetheart deals for all of his quote-unquote girls. And Fekkai has escaped interest. How? Yeah, no longer. You're on the clock as well now, pal. Multiple former Fekkai employees told the Daily Beast that Epstein brought groups of young women into the New York salon on a regular basis after his conviction, where he paid for their services and had them sit on his lap and stroke his hair. When he was in Florida, former employees said Epstein would have Fekkai stylists make house calls to his Palm Beach estate. So these aren't people that just have, a passing interest in each other. These aren't people that, you go into your Supercuts, get yourself a haircut, and that's the end of it. You make small talk and you split. No, these people were close. They were friends, and seems to be a lot closer. There was a lot of ties with Jean-Luc Brunel and Fekkai, as well as with Epstein. They've flown on the plane together, the flight logs have shown. So there's a whole bunch here. And Fekkai is just another enabler, another person who allowed themselves to be used as a vehicle for Jeffrey Epstein to reinsert himself in high society, and another person that needs to be called on the carpet for this. Unbeknownst to them, Fekkai's brand had received an influx of cash years earlier for a company backed by L Brands, the same retailer owned by Epstein's only client, Les Wexner. Boy, the rabbit hole is deep, huh? How many times do I have to say it? How many times do I have to bring up that this is layer upon layer upon layer of a criminal conspiracy that is intercontinental, folks? It spans not states, not cities, but continents. A spokesperson for Frédéric Fekkai brand said the company had been sold by the time of Epstein's conviction in 2008, and that Fekkai was not involved in the salons at the time. Neither he nor the current management team had any knowledge of the incidents described, and in Mr. Fekkai's limited acquaintance with Mr. Epstein, he never witnessed any of the deplorable conduct that led to Mr. Epstein's conviction, the spokesperson said. His limited acquaintance, huh? Flying on the guy's private jet several times, being in the book a whole bunch of times, Epstein sending his girls down to you to get their hair cut all the time, you having your people fly out to Palm Beach all the time. That's limited acquaintance, huh? Okay. 2 decades ago, Epstein would have been almost indistinguishable from the dozens of celebrity clients who flocked to Fekkai's Upper East Side salon. Fekkai, a charismatic man known for his boyish good looks, opened his first salon in 1988 and rose quickly from unknown to French hairdresser to stylist of the stars. He styled celebrities like Demi Moore, Jodie Foster, and Meryl Streep for the red carpet, and was credited with giving Hillary Clinton her signature short layered do. Now, is that a shock? Is it a shock that Hillary Clinton also knew Fekkai, also frequented these salons? Look, the Clintons are neck deep involved with Jeffrey Epstein, okay? I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but the Clintons and Epstein were besties at one point. Epstein donated tons of money to the Clintons. They ran in the same circles, and we don't have to get into how many times Bill was on the plane, right? We don't have to get into the fact that Bill lied about going to Zorro Ranch, right? We don't have to get into the fact that multiple sources confirmed to me directly that Bill Clinton was at that ranch, right? Nah, we don't have to get into that. A 2005 New York Times article listed cuts at Fekkai's salon, which could run up to $750 apiece, as one of many upsides for Epstein's personal assistants. So that is Sarah Kellen Vickers, Groff, Adriana Ross, etc., etc. In addition to the rich paydays, he also ladles on the perks. The article said of the financier, pedophile, he maintains a charge account at Frédéric Fekkai, the society hairdresser, for their unlimited use and pays for all food eaten during his lengthy business hours, including takeout from La Cirque. Okay, so that restaurant should be on the list. Ex-employees from La Cirque should definitely be talked to, and more needs to be gathered about Sarah Kellen Vickers. So again, when we read these articles, especially articles like this on a subject we haven't really delved into here on the podcast, what I do is I find these other names and I start digging there as well. And, I go as far as I can go. I go as far as the trail leads until it dead ends. And then after that, after I run out of resources or ways to find out more, well, I just continue to keep my eye on it until new information pops up that we can add, and then we get a little bit more meat to that bone. So Le Cirque is certainly a place of interest, certainly a place that we need to take a look at. But Fekkai and Epstein appeared to be closer than just stylist and client. The financier, pedophile, had 16 numbers for Fekkai in his black book of contacts, including the hairdresser's home number, his French cell phone, and a number for his assistant. Yeah, that just, they really didn't know each other. They didn't know each other well at all. They were just, Epstein was just a client. 15 numbers, the number to his direct assistant, all for haircuts, huh? Oh, the all-important haircut. You got to make sure you have direct access to Fekkai so you can go get your 4 pieces of haircut, huh, Mr. Epstein? No one's buying it. No one's buying that these guys weren't close. No one's buying that Epstein wasn't close with all of these other billionaires. They were all thick as thieves. Flight logs show Fekkai flew on Epstein's private plane at least twice in 2000 and 2002, along with Epstein's alleged Madam Ghislaine Maxwell and his shady model scout pal Jean-Luc Brunel. The whole entire management structure, the whole entire structure of bosses for the criminal operation on that plane, and Fekkai's with them. You know how I feel about this. I feel like it's a mafia-type organization, an organized crime setup, meaning Epstein is the acting boss, Ghislaine is the shadow boss, but acting as the underboss. And then you had third in line, basically the consigliere, was Jean-Luc Brunel. And then underneath them were the 4 lieutenants. The girls, the Sarah Kellens of the world, the Adriana Rosses of the world, etc., etc. And that's how it was set up. So you have this guy on the plane with the whole entire command structure of this criminal enterprise, and nobody's blowing this guy up. This guy isn't in the news anymore. No one's talking about him being an enabler. Well, sorry, that's over. This guy definitely needs to be talked about. He definitely needs to be more research needs to be done into his relationship with Epstein, and we need to get down to into the grass and into the weeds with all of these people that were close to Epstein, because we're never going to see the full picture unless we have all of the pieces. Simone Banos, a longtime friend of Fekkai, told the Daily Beast that Epstein and Fekkai ran in similar New York social circles, but said she couldn't imagine the hairdresser staying friends with Epstein after he was convicted of soliciting a minor for prostitution and accused by dozens more of sexual assault. I don't care what you can imagine. The facts are the facts. I'm getting really tired of people living in their own realities. All right, there's not one reality. We all share reality, okay? And the reality of the situation is this guy was flying around on Epstein's plane with Ghislaine Maxwell, with Jean-Luc Brunel, and everybody knew, even then, especially people close, the sort of person that Epstein was, the sort of thing Epstein was up to. A spokesperson for Fekkai said the hairdresser had a very limited acquaintance with Epstein, who was known to aggressively cultivate celebrities. He was not Epstein's friend or his stylist. And this is how they've all backtracked. This is what they've all said. Oh, we ran in the same circles, but, we weren't friends. So what, Epstein was just in the circle and he had no friends in that circle? He was just standing around like the kid with no one to dance with at the dance? That's what you're trying to tell me? That he was not friends with any of you? You guys just felt sorry for him, so you went to his house, you went to his dinners, you flew on his planes, you accepted his money, but you weren't friends. Nobody's believing this. Nobody believes any of this. Frédéric is disgusted and sickened by Epstein's activities, which no one was aware of in 2000 and 2002, when Frédéric accepted a ride on his jet. The spokesperson said, had he been aware, he would never have boarded that plane, let alone with his 5-year-old son, his son's nanny, and his girlfriend at the time. Another one using their family as an excuse. What do you mean nobody knew? Maria Farmer told everybody, okay? 8 years prior to this happening, 7 years prior to you being on the plane, Maria Farmer told everybody, and nobody listened. So it's not that you didn't know, you chose to turn the other cheek. You chose not to pay attention to the information that was out there. You chose instead to enable Jeffrey Epstein. Now you have to wear it like a badge, okay? Now you're going to wear it. But former Fekkai employees said Epstein remained a regular at the salon even after his 2008 conviction. 3 of these employees recalled Epstein bringing a rotating cast of tall, beautiful, and suspiciously young-looking women with him for monthly appointments. The 4th employee remembered Epstein bringing women in with him, but could not recall details of their interactions. So again, his MO is totally what we're seeing here. The young girls looking very, very young, very good looking for the most part. He always had to have a gaggle of girls around him. He always had to have a bunch of young ladies around him. Who knows how old they were? They could have been 18, 19, they could have been 21, they could have been 16. We have no idea. But the fact of the matter is that nobody thought it was weird all this time that Epstein always had these hot little young girls around him, all these beautiful young girls around him, these beautiful women around him. Have you taken a look at Jeffrey Epstein? Doesn't exactly scream Don Juan DeMarco. The financier, Pedophile paid for the women's haircuts and dye jobs from his house account, the employee said, and either he or a female associate dictated exactly how their hair was styled. This is the level of control that we see inside of cults. This is the level of control we saw with Nexium. This is the level of control that Jeffrey Epstein exhibited over these people. And it's a part of the story that hasn't been explored enough yet, in my opinion. I don't have the chops for it, to be honest with you. I don't know enough about psychology to get down into the weeds and down into the dirt with stuff like that. But I think it's fascinating, the whole psychological angle of this story that really has not been delved into yet. In between services, the women sat on Epstein's lap or stroked his hair in full view of the hundreds of guests at Fekkai's 9,000 square foot hair emporium. It was a very out in the open, one former employee said. Everyone knew. So Fekkai acting like he doesn't know? Yeah, sorry, that's a lie. He knew. He didn't give an F, another former employee said. He was coming in like he was running the show. He didn't care. That's how Epstein rolled wherever he went, especially once he had his claws into you. Once you were part of the honey trap, once you were part of the blackmail scheme, once you engaged in sexual acts with young girls and you were caught on film and it was put into the dossier, well, he owned you now. So yeah, he's running in like he runs things. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? He did run things. We all know that the most powerful currency is information. And Jeffrey Epstein had it in abundance. Several of the former employees told the Daily Beast they asked not to work with Epstein or the women he brought in after his conviction. But they also said they did not want to complain too much because it was clear Epstein was friendly with Fekkai and because they could not tell if something illegal was going on. And look, as somebody who's been a boss, a manager in a huge corporation, in a huge operation where I've had 25, 30 people below me, if one of my employees came to me and said, look, Bobby, I don't think I'm comfortable working with, insert guest here because they're whatever the situation may be, I would definitely make sure that I would do everything in my power that employee did not have to work with that guest. Because at the end of the day, these people are just employees, right? You shouldn't be, expecting them to work with a guest who makes them uncomfortable, who might say disgusting things to them or make, sexually illicit remarks, whatever it may be. You shouldn't expect an employee to have to deal with that. And I don't care if it's a high roller or a VIP or anything like that. At the end of the day, you should worry about your employees. But Fekkai didn't give a damn about any of that. He didn't care. These people were scared to speak out because there'd be blowback and they'd probably be fired. And I'm sure they had a good thing going here. And they didn't know if it was illegal, right? But they felt uncomfortable. Their intuition, their gut said something was wrong. How many times have we seen that in this case? The thing is, we can never tell how old the girls were, one former employee said. They came in heels, makeup. They were all way too young for him, but legal, you didn't always know. And this is what I've said a bunch of times. When you have a girl made up and she's wearing makeup and heels and a short mini dress maybe, whatever it may be, these young girls, they could look like they're of age. That's not what people are thinking about in a salon. They're not thinking that some guy's going to brazenly bring in 15 and 16-year-old girls, but that's the sort of shit Jeffrey Epstein did. That is the sort of man he was. He was so brazen about what was going on because he knew he was afforded protection from the very highest levels of power. But he was a pig no matter what, the employee said. All right, I like this employee. In Palm Beach, the ritzy vacation town where Epstein was first charged, Fekkai employees said stylists made regular house calls to the financier, pedophile, in the same $2.5 million estate where he spent his year-long house arrest. He spent his year. One stylist said he was first introduced to Epstein by Fekkai himself at the New York salon and started cutting Epstein's hair at his Palm Beach home in 2012. 3 current and former co-workers confirmed that they had heard the stylist talk about these trips. Now, does that sound like somebody who's not close with the owner of the company gets somebody flown in from New York to get his hair chopped? Does that sound like somebody who doesn't have an established relationship with this business? The stylist said he often spoke with Sarah Kellen and Leslie Groff, 2 of Epstein's assistants who have been accused of recruiting girls for his sexual massages, but never saw anything that aroused his suspicions. An attorney for Groff said she never engaged in any misconduct during her employment with Epstein. Any girls that I saw that were there, I always found them very educated, very smart, very articulate, he told the Daily Beast. When I was there for the hour and a half, he was a gentleman. Of course he was. He wasn't interested in you, buddy. He was not interested in you. And the girls were well-spoken and very articulate because that's the way Epstein liked them. How could he run around in his circle of sickos and other sick, disgusting elites if the people around him didn't speak the lingo, didn't speak the tongue, didn't get involved and be, somebody that fit in? Well, they have to be smart. They have to be articulate. They have to have that New York upper crust, I'm better than you in the flyover states outlook. And they all certainly did. A Fekkai brand spokesperson said the company completed an exhaustive review of its records and found no receipts for house calls to Epstein's residences. Yeah, of course, because it wasn't on file. Just like Ghislaine Maxwell went to Buckingham Palace and nobody marked it down. You really think that Fekkai sending people out to Epstein couldn't be hidden? Couldn't just be thrown in the trash? What, does Fekkai have some sort of ultra security system on his emails and taxes and stuff? Give me a break. On his receipts, I mean? Stop it. Another case of, we'll investigate ourselves. You just have to trust us. If a stylist did make a house call to one of his homes, he or she did not do so as an employee of the company, the spokesperson said. What the stylist did not know was the extent of their company's financial relationship with Les Wexner, Epstein's only known client. Again, Wexner involved in everything Epstein was involved in because Wexner was a big part of the whole entire blackmail ring, in my opinion, folks. He had a part to play, and I am convinced of that. Do I have direct evidence leading to him? I do not. But intuition and my gut and the evidence that is provided, well, it paints a dark picture for your buddy Les Wexner. Wexner is the CEO of L Brands, not anymore, which owns brands like Victoria's Secret and Bath & Body Works, and had an agreement to run upmarket stores under the C.O. Bigelow name. He first hired Epstein as his personal financial advisor, but eventually handed over an uncommon amount of money and power to the relatively unknown money man. Of course he did, because he was commanded to do that. His boys in the mega group wanted to make sure that the capital was provided for Epstein to get this whole thing up and running. That, in my opinion, that's where the evidence has led us, okay? That capital was provided to get the operation up and running. Among other things, Wexner gave Epstein full power of attorney and reportedly donated more than $10 million to Epstein's charity through his personal foundation. Several of Epstein's accusers have claimed the financier, pedophile, posed as a Victoria's Secret talent scout in order to lure them into hotel rooms and assault them. Wexner claims he had no personal knowledge of Epstein's impropriety and cut ties with him in 2007 when the allegations against him emerged. We know that's BS. We know that that's just a big old lie. And Wexner is another one who really, really needs to answer questions. Fekkai first entered Wexner's orbit in 2004 when Bath & Body Works and C.O. Bigelow began selling his line of home hair care products, which had until then been sold only in high-end retailers like Neiman Marcus. One former Fekkai executive told the Daily Beast that she advised against the deal, thinking it would diminish the brand's status, but that Fekkai was set on it. Oh yeah, I bet he was. I wonder if what's behind the part of that story, right? Was he coerced into being involved in that? Did Epstein, twist his arm? What did Epstein have on Fekkai? Was Fekkai, look, we have to ask these questions. We have to wonder why Fekkai would try and cheapen his brand by putting it in these L brand stores. It wouldn't have happened if Frederick wasn't behind it, and of that I'm certain, the executive said. The following year, private equity company Catterton Partners issued a celebratory press release announcing it had taken a majority stake in the Frédéric Fekkai Incorporated. What the press release did not mention was that Catterton was backed in part by L Brands. In fact, both the L Brands executive and a former Fekkai executive said Wexner had considered buying the hair products company outright. So see, look, there's a lot more here. Jeffrey Epstein and Fekkai were a lot closer than is on record. Epstein and Fekkai were probably doing some business as well. L Brands did not have a direct investment, but did participate in a private equity fund which had stakes in a number of companies, including a controlling interest in Fekkai. A spokesperson for Fekkai Brands told the Daily Beast. L Brands never wound up buying Fekkai's company. Instead, the company was purchased in 2005 by Procter & Gamble for a reported $440 million. The company, known for producing drugstore standbys like Pantene and Herbal Essence, tried and failed to introduce Fekkai's product line to a mass-market audience, dropping its price point as well as its prestige. P&G eventually sold the company to designer parfumes and Luxe brands at an estimated $390 million loss. A lawsuit filed by Fekkai employees this year claimed Luxe brand had mismanaged the company and degraded the brand, turning its flagship location into a mall salon, and does not offer the same luxurious environment that the clients had grown accustomed to. Fekkai's 3 changes of ownership in 10 years and the 2 changes of ownership in only 3 years, among other things, have made it difficult for plaintiffs to feel comfortable having a long-term future at Fekkai. The plaintiffs wrote, the lawsuit settled out of court. Last winter, Fekkai bought his company back from designer parfumes and Luxe brands for an undisclosed sum, something he had reportedly been hoping to do for some time. In an interview with Women's Wear Daily, Fekkai said he was eager to be in the driver's seat and expand his brand internationally and online. The brand needs a leader, he said, someone who knows what they're doing, who the team can respect. Well, folks, that is Frédéric Fekkai, another enabler of Jeffrey Epstein, another person who was very close to Jeffrey Epstein, and another person who not only had ties to Epstein, but we see working from the shadows, once again, Les Wexner pulling strings and managing things from a very hidden position. And that seems to be the case with all of this. Les Wexner is certainly the man behind the curtain, in my opinion. And as more information comes out, we're going to see a clearer picture. And I think a lot of reporters and investigative journalists were very hesitant to dig into Les Wexner, to dig deep there. And I think that's starting to change, especially seeing that he's vulnerable with him having to step down from his companies. I think that you're going to see reporters and investigative journalists dig a little bit deeper into Les Wexner, and I have a funny feeling that what gets uncovered is going to make a lot of people's jaws drop. Not ours, obviously. We expect it at this point, but people that have not been paying attention, I think a lot of them are going to be shocked when all of the information comes out and the puzzle is put together. All right, everybody, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. Also, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. And if you enjoy the show and you would like to help out, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow with a daily drop and the usual morning update. All right, folks, until then, have a great evening and enjoy your Sunday night.